My name is redacted. My rank is redacted. What I'm about to describe occurred on a date I cannot disclose, inside a country where we were not supposed to be. I commanded the assault element. This is what happened. You don't understand pressure until you've waited 72 hours for a phone call that may never come. We'd been in country for 6 days, staged on a naval platform somewhere in the Caribbean. The ship had a name I can't mention. The water was dark. The air was thick with salt and fuel exhaust. We conducted final reviews in converted storage compartments, equipment checks twice daily, rehearsals in a mock-up constructed from plywood and tape that didn't quite match the real thing because intelligence is never perfect and layouts change and people move furniture and ground truth is always different from what satellite imagery tells you. We knew the compound. We'd been studying it for months. We'd seen it from above, thermal, infrared, high-resolution optical. We'd seen it from the street, photos taken by assets on foot, driving past, pretending to be lost. We had a source inside who'd walked the perimeter, counted steps from one corner to another, noted patrol rotations, memorized the faces of guards, documented which doors were locked and which ones weren't. Human intelligence, the kind that takes months to develop, the kind that requires trust, money, patience, and luck, the kind that can evaporate in an afternoon if someone talks, if someone notices a question they shouldn't have asked, if someone gets nervous and disappears. The target wasn't where everyone thought he'd be, not the palace, not the ceremonial residence with the grand facade and the flag and the balcony where he gave speeches. He'd moved to a military complex on the eastern side of the city, fortified, active duty personnel rotating through 24 hours a day. Command and control infrastructure embedded in the same compound, harder to penetrate, harder to leave, surrounded by loyalists who would respond immediately to any breach. That's where he felt safe. We'd been tracking his movements for 16 weeks, his habits, his routines, his security rotations, the nights he worked late, the mornings he arrived early, his medical appointments at a private clinic 3 blocks away, the mistress who visited on Tuesdays, the chef who delivered meals at specific times. You build a pattern from fragments. You wait for it to repeat. You cross-reference sources. You verify through multiple channels. Then you wait for the night when conditions align. Weather, moon phase, guard shift changes, political distraction, something in the news cycle that would pull attention elsewhere, even for a few hours. You wait for the window. It opened on a Thursday. The call came at 2100 hours. I was in the ready room with my team leaders, 4 of them, men I'd worked with for years. We just finished another walkthrough of the plan, 9th or 10th time that day. Everyone knew their sector. Everyone knew their individual responsibilities. We'd rehearsed the assault until it was muscle memory, movements without thought, reactions without hesitation. The senior officer entered without ceremony. No knock, no warning. He just walked in with a folder under his arm and a satellite phone in his hand. "You're authorized," he said. "Wheels up in 90 minutes. No one reacted visibly, but the air changed. You could feel it. The shift from preparation to execution, from hypothetical to real. I looked at the clock on the wall. 2102 hours. We had until 22:30 to be airborne. 90 minutes is not a lot of time when you're about to insert into hostile sovereign territory to capture a sitting head of state. But we'd trained for this. We'd packed and repacked our kits 100 times. Every piece of equipment had been inspected, tested, and staged for rapid loading. We moved to the armory first. Weapons check, ammunition count, night vision systems, comms gear, breaching charges, medical supplies, flex cuffs, hoods. Everything you need to capture, secure, and extract a high-value target from a defended position in a country that will consider your presence an act of war. No one spoke much. A few quiet confirmations, nods, hand signals. I checked my rifle for the last time, loaded a fresh magazine, chambered a round, confirmed the optic was zeroed, tested the infrared laser. Everything worked. We loaded fast, checked comms one final time. Verified rally points, primary, secondary, emergency. Confirmed exfil routes. You plan for failure at every stage because missions don't go as planned. Ever. Something always breaks. Someone always reacts differently than you expected. The terrain looks different at night. The doors are locked when they shouldn't be. The guards are awake when they should be sleeping. You plan for chaos and hope for precision. I gathered my team leaders one last time. Final confirmation, I said. Primary objective is capture. Alive, controlled, minimal casualties. We control the violence. We control the pace. If it goes loud, we adapt. But the objective doesn't change. They nodded. Exfil is non-negotiable. We all leave together. No one gets left behind. Not the target, not our people. More nods. Questions? Silence. I looked at my men. They looked back. No speeches. No motivation. No talk about God or country or righteousness. They knew what this was. They knew what was at stake. They knew the risks. We boarded the aircraft in silence. The flight took 43 minutes. We flew low, blacked out, no external lights, no communication with civilian air traffic control. The cabin was dark except for the red glow of instrument panels and the faint green haze of night vision goggles. You could hear the rotors, but not much else. The airframe vibrated. The wind howled through gaps in the fuselage. Some guys closed their eyes. Some checked their gear for the 10th time, running hands over magazines and grenades and medical pouches like a ritual. Some just stare at nothing, locked in their own thoughts. I reviewed the imagery one last time. The compound sat on 12 acres in the eastern district of the city. High walls, concrete, topped with razor wire and broken glass embedded in cement. 3 entry points, main gate on the south side, service gate on the west, emergency vehicle access on the north, internal courtyards. A primary residence structure, 3 stories, reinforced windows, steel doors, barracks for security personnel, a vehicle depot with fuel storage, guard towers on the northeast and southwest corners, each with overlapping fields of fire. Our insertion point was a drainage access on the southern perimeter, covered by vegetation, concealed from the guard towers. Narrow, barely wide enough for a man with full kit. It would put us inside the outer wall, but still 300 meters from the main structure. That's a long walk in the dark when you're not supposed to be there. The pilot's voice came through the headset. 2 minutes. I tapped the man next to me. He tapped the next. The signal moved down the line like electricity. Everyone stood, adjusted kit, tightened straps, checked weapons one last time. We moved to the door. The ramp dropped and we were out. The noise hit first. Wind, rotors hammering the air, dust kicking up in clouds, then silence as the aircraft lifted and banked away, disappearing into the night. We moved immediately. No light, no comms chatter, hand signals only. The terrain was rougher than I expected. Uneven ground, dense vegetation, thorns catching on gear. We moved in a tactical column, spacing maintained, security oriented outward. The drainage access was exactly where it was supposed to be, 12 feet wide, steel grate covering the entrance. We'd been told it was never locked, that the guards didn't bother checking it because it was partially flooded and led nowhere they cared about. Intel was right. The grate lifted with minimal effort. We went in fast. The tunnel was tight, low ceiling forcing us into a crouch, standing water up to our ankles, the smell of decay and industrial chemicals, rust, mold, something rotting. We moved in single file. No one spoke. You could hear boots splashing, breathing through respirators, the faint hiss of radio static on standby, water dripping from somewhere ahead. 200 meters through that tunnel. It felt like 2 miles. My point man stopped, raised a fist. Danger close. I moved up beside him. The exit was ahead, covered by another grate, light filtering through from the compound above. He looked at me. I nodded. He moved forward, checked for wires, for sensors, for anything that would indicate we'd been expected. Nothing. He lifted the grate slowly, inch by inch, listening. Silence above. We emerged one at a time. We emerged inside the compound perimeter at 01:47 hours. The courtyard was empty, dimly lit by security lights mounted on the buildings. Shadows everywhere. The air smelled like diesel and cigarette smoke. Somewhere in the distance, music played from a radio. American pop music. Distorted. Faint. Guard rotation had just changed. Exactly as predicted. We had 8 minutes before the next patrol cycle brought 2 men through this sector. We moved toward the main structure. Low. Fast. Using shadows and angles to stay invisible. That's when the dog started barking. No plan survives contact. The dog wasn't in the intelligence brief. Neither was the handler who appeared 30 seconds later, moving toward the noise with a flashlight and a radio on his hip. We froze, pressed against a wall, weapons up, aiming. He was 70 meters away, scanning the courtyard with his light. The beam swept left then right, cutting through the darkness like a blade. He called out in Spanish, Something about checking the fence line. Something about the dog acting strange lately. The dog kept barking. Aggressive. Focused on our position. My team leader looked at me. Finger on the trigger, waiting for the call. I raised one finger. Wait. The handler moved closer. 60 meters. 50. The dog pulled at the leash, straining toward us. 40 meters. I could see his face now. Young. Maybe 25. Uniform poorly fitted. Rifle slung across his back. He wasn't expecting anything. But the dog knew. 35 meters. I made the call. 2 suppressed shots. Center mass. He dropped without a sound. The flashlight hit the ground and rolled, beam cutting crazy angles across the pavement. The dog bolted, leash trailing, disappearing into the darkness. We moved immediately, dragged the body into the shadows near a maintenance shed, grabbed the flashlight, turned it off. Blood pooled on the concrete. Dark. Spreading. I looked at my watch. 01:51 hours. We'd been on the ground for 4 minutes and we'd already killed someone. We kept moving. The main structure had 2 entry points we could use without exposing ourselves to direct observation from the guard towers. Front entrance. Exposed. Well lit. Monitored by cameras we'd identified in the imagery. Reinforced door. Electronic lock. Guard station inside. Service entrance on the east side. Partially concealed by a loading dock overhang. Less visible from the guard towers, but locked with a mechanical deadbolt and likely alarmed. We'd planned for the service entrance. Our breacher moved forward, placed the shaped charge around the lock mechanism, backed off, unspooled the det cord. Everyone stacked on either side of the door. I counted down with my fingers. 3, 2, 1. The door blew inward with a muffled crack. Smoke. The smell of explosive residue. Metal screeching as the lock mechanism disintegrated. We were inside. The interior was quieter than I expected. Tile floors. Narrow hallways lit by fluorescent tubes. Low ceilings. It smelled like cigarettes and floor cleaner and stale air from an overtaxed HVAC system. We moved in 2 teams. Mine went left toward the residential wing. Second team secured the stairwell and provided rear security, watching our backs, ready to collapse on us if we ran into trouble. Intelligence said the target used the second floor. Northeast corner suite, private quarters, reinforced door, possible internal security presence. Maybe 2 bodyguards who stayed close, maybe more depending on the night. We reached the stairwell. No resistance yet. That bothered me. It was too quiet, too easy. Either our intelligence was better than we thought, or we were walking into something. Second floor. The hallway stretched ahead. 4 doors on each side. Generic. Institutional. The target suite was the last one on the right. A double door. Heavier than the others. We stacked outside. 4 men. Weapons up. Breathe steady. I pressed my ear to the door. Voices inside. 2, maybe 3. Speaking Spanish. Conversational. Not alarmed. Not expecting anything. I looked at my breacher. He nodded. Placed the charge. Everyone stepped back. We went in hard. The door came off the hinges. Flashbang deployed. Blinding light. Concussive blast. Immediate entry. Shock and speed. The first man inside the room took fire. Muzzle flash from the left. Handgun. Wild shots. High. Poorly aimed. Panic fire. He returned fire. 2 rounds. Controlled. Center mass. The shooter went down hard, collapsing against a dresser, blood spattering the wall behind him. Second man tried to reach for a rifle propped against the wall near the bed. My team leader put him on the floor before his fingers touched it. 3 rounds. Tight grouping. He dropped without making a sound. Then silence. Ringing ears. Smoke. The acrid smell of gunpowder. The target was standing near the window. Not hiding. Not running. Not reaching for a weapon. Just standing there in a white undershirt and dark slacks, hands at his sides, staring at us like he'd been expecting this. Like he'd known this day would come eventually. Maybe he had. Maybe men in his position always know. I moved forward. Weapon raised. Finger on the trigger. On the ground. Now. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared. On the ground. He looked at me. Not defiant. Not afraid. Just resigned. Like a man who'd run out of options and knew it. Then he got on his knees. Slowly, deliberately. We zip-tied his wrists behind his back, hooded him with a black cloth bag, searched him quickly. No weapons, no communication device, no hidden surprises. He didn't resist. He didn't say a word. We had him, but we weren't out, and the compound was waking up. I could hear voices outside, footsteps running, radios crackling with confused chatter. The guard towers had spotted movement. Maybe our insertion, maybe the breach, maybe just shadows they couldn't explain. Lights were coming on throughout the complex. My second team leader's voice came through the earpiece. They're mobilizing. Multiple guards responding to the main structure. We've got 60 seconds, maybe less, before they lock down the exits. I looked at the target. Hooded, cuffed, compliant, breathing heavily through the hood. Then I looked at my men. Weapons trained on the door, waiting for the next move. We had two options. Fight our way to the primary exfil point, the drainage tunnel, the way we came in, now likely compromised, probably under observation, almost certainly covered by fire within minutes, or use the emergency route, the one we'd planned for worst-case scenarios, through the vehicle depot on the west side, out the western gate, longer distance, more exposure, more opportunity for things to go wrong, but potentially less immediate resistance because they wouldn't expect us to move deeper into the compound before exiting. I made the call. We're going west, secondary route, move now. We grabbed the target and pulled him to his feet. He stumbled. We kept him upright, one man on each arm, moving fast. We exited the suite and moved back down the hallway toward the stairs. Behind us, I could hear boots pounding, shouting, orders being barked in Spanish. They were coming. Converging on our position, we hit the stairs moving fast, down to the first floor, through a side corridor that led toward the vehicle depot. The map in my head matched reality. Turn left, 30 meters, through a set of double doors, into the depot. Behind us, the noise was getting louder, closer. They were hunting us. The depot was a large open garage, 6 vehicles parked in a row, military trucks, an armored personnel carrier, 2 civilian sedans, fuel storage tanks against the far wall, tool racks, a single overhead light casting harsh shadows. It was empty, for now. We moved through fast, the target between 2 operators. No hesitation, no pause. The western gate was 50 meters ahead, chain link, reinforced, locked with a heavy padlock and chain. We could see the street beyond. Dark, empty. That's when the first shots hit the wall beside us. Automatic fire, from the guard tower, northeast position, poorly aimed but sustained, rounds sparking off concrete, punching through corrugated metal siding, ricocheting wildly. We returned fire, suppressive bursts, controlled, aimed at the tower, enough to force them down, to make them think twice, to buy us seconds. My breacher ran forward toward the gate, dropped to one knee, placed a charge on the lock mechanism. Clear! Everyone moved back, shielded the target with our bodies. The explosion ripped the gate open, metal shrieking, chain snapping like a whip. We pushed through, outside the compound, into the street, open ground. More gunfire behind us shouting, vehicle engines starting somewhere in the distance. The exfil vehicles were 2 blocks north, pre-positioned by another element. Engines running, drivers waiting. We ran. The target kept pace. No resistance, no theatrics, no attempting to escape or slow us down. He ran like a man who understood exactly what would happen if he didn't. Behind us, more gunfire, poorly aimed, desperate, the sound of gates opening, sirens beginning to wail. We reached the exfil point at 0219 hours. 3 vehicles, armored, doors open, loaded. Target in the center vehicle, secured, guarded by 4 operators. I took the lead vehicle. The vehicles accelerated hard, no lights, navigating by GPS and memory and pre-scouted routes through the Eastern District. We had 12 minutes to reach the secondary extraction point before air support could no longer maintain coverage without risking detection by national radar systems. The city blurred past, empty streets, darkened buildings, a few scattered headlights from late-night drivers who had no idea what was happening, graffiti on walls, garbage piled on corners. No pursuit yet, but it was coming. We'd stirred up a hornet's nest. The entire military command structure would be scrambling within minutes. We turned north, then east, following the route we'd memorized. Every turn planned, every intersection cleared in advance. My driver was calm, focused, hands steady on the wheel. We reached the outskirts at 0228 hours. The helicopters were waiting in a clearing half a kilometer from the road. 2 of them, rotors turning, crew chiefs visible in the doors. We offloaded fast, moved toward the aircraft in a tactical column. No running, controlled. The target was placed in the lead bird, secured in a seat, flanked by 2 operators. Still hooded, still silent. I did a final head count. Everyone accounted for. No casualties on our side. I took one last look at the city. Lights were coming on across entire neighborhoods. Distant sirens multiplying. The sound of chaos spreading like wildfire. Then we lifted. The flight to the naval platform took 31 minutes. No one spoke. The cabin was dark except for red lights and the glow of instrument panels. The target sat motionless, hooded, cuffed, flanked by 2 operators who watched him without expression. I watched him too. He didn't move, didn't shake, didn't try to speak or shift position or test his restraints. He just sat there, like a man who'd accepted his fate. We landed on the deck at 0314 hours. The ship was lit up, personnel everywhere, federal agents waiting on the flight deck, marshals, Justice Department officials, someone from State Department, someone from CIA, the entire apparatus of American law enforcement and intelligence standing in the wind and rotor wash. The target was transferred into their custody without ceremony. I signed the transfer documentation, confirmed identity, confirmed condition, confirmed chain of custody. He was led away across the deck, still hooded, surrounded by agents. I never saw him again. People ask me what it felt like. They expect something dramatic, triumph, relief, pride, some cinematic moment of realization. It wasn't like that. It felt like work, high stakes, high consequence. But work. You train for years to execute missions like this. You rehearse until every movement is instinctive. You plan for every contingency. You accept that some things will go wrong and you'll have to adapt in real time. You do the job. You bring everyone home. You hand off the package and you move on to the next mission. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't weigh on me. Not the act itself. We operated within our authorities. We executed as directed. We controlled the violence to the extent possible. We minimized casualties, 2 dead, both armed, both presenting immediate threat. But the scale of it, the implications, the fact that we crossed into a sovereign nation, penetrated a fortified military compound, captured a sitting head of state, and extracted him without starting a war. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of operation that gets analyzed for decades, that changes relationships between nations, that sets precedents. I think about the guard we dropped in the courtyard. Young guy, doing his job, walked into something he couldn't have anticipated, never had a chance. I think about the 2 men in the room who reached for weapons, split-second decisions. Them or us. We won. They didn't. I think about the target, standing by that window waiting for us, the look in his eyes. Resignation, acceptance, not fear. I think about the choices made in those seconds, the calls that could have gone differently, the margins that separated success from catastrophe. And I think about what happens after, the political fallout, the diplomatic consequences, the legal proceedings that follow, the international condemnation, the domestic support or criticism, the message it sends to other leaders, other nations, other enemies. That's not my world. My world is execution, planning, training, decision-making under pressure, bringing people home. But I understand the weight of what we did. I understand that some operations exist in a space beyond tactics and strategy, where the mission becomes part of history, where the consequences ripple outward in ways we can't predict or control. 3 weeks after the operation, I was back home. My daughter asked me where I'd been. I told her I was working. She asked me if I was helping people. I said yes. She smiled and went back to her homework. That's the part they don't show in movies. The quiet return, the normal life that continues, the family dinner, the school pickup, the mortgage payment, the grocery store. You operate in the shadows and then you come home to the light, and you carry both worlds inside you. Operations like this don't happen often. They require alignment at every level, intelligence that's accurate enough to act on, authorization from the highest levels of government, capability, the right people, the right equipment, the right training, timing that creates a window of opportunity, and risk acceptance from leadership who understand what's at stake. They require men willing to walk into a situation with no guarantees, who trust their training, who trust each other, who accept that they might not come home, and they require leadership willing to make hard calls under pressure, to adapt when plans fail, to prioritize mission and men in equal measure. I was asked during the debrief if I'd do it again. I said yes, not because I wanted to, not because I enjoyed it, but because if the mission is lawful, if the objective is clear, If my men are prepared, if the authorization is valid, I'll execute. That's the job. That's what we do. Someone asked me if I thought it was worth it. I said that's not my question to answer. We're given objectives, we plan, we execute, we adapt. We complete the mission. The worth of it, the moral weight, the political justification, the long-term consequences, that's for others to decide. I can only tell you what happened, what we did, how we did it, and that everyone on my team came home. There's a phrase we use in the community, quiet professionals. It means you don't seek recognition. You don't tell stories at parties. You don't write books or give interviews or appear on television. You do the work in silence. You carry the weight in silence. You live with the consequences in silence. I'm breaking that silence now because I was ordered to, because there's a record that needs to exist, because someone somewhere decided this operation was significant enough to document. But when I walk out of this room, I'll return to that silence. I'll go back to my team, my family, my life, and the mission will become another classified file in a secure facility that most people will never know exists. But I'll know, my men will know, and the target, wherever he is now, in whatever prison or facility holds him, he'll know. The target was transferred to federal custody. The operation lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes from insertion to final extraction. No American personnel were killed. 2 enemy combatants were killed in the conduct of the assault. Both were armed. Both presented immediate threat. The mission was classified as successful. But success in our world doesn't mean clean. It doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean without cost. It means executed. It means controlled. It means everyone came home. And that's enough. That has to be enough. Because if we start questioning every decision, every action, every consequence, we'll never be able to do the job. And the job still needs doing. We did what was asked. We operated within the authorities granted to us. We controlled the chaos. We executed with precision. We brought him out alive. History will judge whether it was right. Policymakers will judge whether it was justified. The courts will judge whether it was lawful. I judged whether it was possible. And we proved it was. That's all I have to say.